Hello and welcome. That's pretty loud. Thank you for joining us today. I realize this is actually perfect for the timing, at least for me, because last time we did this conversation, I think it was right after lunch. So I think it's better to be right before lunch, although if you're thinking about lunch, stop, okay? We'll get past that. We're gonna talk about data-centric operations and how to deliver workflow with low-code, no-code. Start out. My name is Keith Demma. I'm a principal field solution architect. And I'd like to start with a little bit of humility. I do not wear the uniform. I've not worn the uniform. I've not been in the boots on the battlefield like so many of you, but I have a tremendous amount of respect and passion, and I'm here to talk to you about how we can transform the future of operations. When I bring up the conversation of me not having military experience, I will say what I do bring to the table is 30 years of experience in operations, in process automation, all things to be able to deliver, again, faster, better, cheaper capabilities. The Army is collecting a ton of information right now. You're getting a ton of information from sensors, from UAV feeds, from maintenance operations, logs, you name it. You're collecting tons and tons of information. And the challenges that you're facing right now is being able to get that information into the right hands of the right people when they need it the most. I want to take a minute to introduce Mike, who I'm just going to say the passion and excitement that he brings to the table, and when he shares, who he is, has really kind of accelerated, my passion for this industry to be able to help deliver and serve you by using data and technology. So, Mike.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Keith. My name is Michael Longoria. I'm a senior account executive at ServiceNow. I run the warfighting enterprise on the Army team. So, everything pointy, stabby, and shooty falls within my purview, right? Prior to this, I was an Army officer for 11 years, medically retired in 2019. I've been supporting the defense space for about 6 years now. Very, very excited at the discussion that we're going to have today. I think this is great, the perfect amount of people, because we can have a more intimate discussion, have a more collaborative discussion today. Keith, when you invited me to do this, when I got on the plane a couple days ago, almost 11 years ago today, I was a lieutenant on the Pakistan border, about 2 kilometers from Pakistan, in a place called Kag Torkum in Nangarhar. And it was my first bad day at the office as an infantry platoon leader. And everything worked out fine, but what I was thinking about that on the way here was one of my team leaders coming to me in the midst of the challenges we were facing at the complex attack on Torkum. And when they said, "Sir, what do we do next?" And that's something that's always stuck with me, because think about how warfare has changed. Battlefield management has changed just over the last 11 years, 12 years, where we're fighting asymmetrically here as we prepare to fight a near-peer adversary. I was never thinking about, electronic warfare signal on the battlefield when we'd go out and, do our movement to contact out in, the mountains. The things that the leader, my baby sister, she's not a baby anymore, she's a company commander at Fort Stewart right now, armor company commander, that she's going to face in the next conflict is a lot more complicated. As Keith said, as data generation grows exponentially as technology grows, right? How do we make sense of that in a time that's meaningful and applicable on the battlefield, applicable in a training environment, and applicable in garrison, right? Because what we do every day is what we're going to do in training. What we do in training is how we're going to fight. And so looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on some of these topics.
Thanks, Mike. I think you and I have talked about this before at length, and the reality of it is your budgets have been cut. You got a third of the resources that you used to have, and nobody cares. Nobody's coming to save you. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's up to you. And so we're trying to bring all of this to you at the levels that you need it.
If I could just add, it's not that nobody cares. You guys are going to continue to do the unthinkable for the ungrateful every day. Mission creep is a real thing. And so how can we unchain your warfighters and your doers from the desk, eliminate repetitive tasks so that you can focus on the mission, right? And how can we help you move faster?
Thank you. We're going to start with some high-level stuff, and then we'll get into the fun stuff. How about that? So when we talk about enabling data-centric operations, you care about scalability. Is the apps built across all of the platforms that you need? Utilization and experience. I'm going to focus on utilization because I've seen multiple experiences as I go out to our clients, and I talk to them about how their utilization and the scalability as well fits into their cost structure and their budgets. In other words, if you're going to choose a platform, and by the way, there's a lot of great platforms out there that are enabling you to do better jobs in what you do. So they're all equally important. But what I'm finding is that some of them are not scalable. Some of them actually do exceed your budgets as you develop more, as you utilize them more, either by charging you more for apps or charging more for users. And again, I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but we're having a lot of those conversations where people are shifting off of those platforms because they can't afford it anymore. That is not where we want you to be, is you've already made the decision to transform, and you're growing it like you should, and then it exceeds the budget threshold, especially with what I said. Your budgets are cut. So does the cost model work for increased usage, increased users, increased capabilities? I think that is number one right now that I'm seeing out. And Mike, if you don't mind touching on some of the other scalability and experience, again, from a military perspective.
Sure. Do we actually know what takes place in our organization each week? Are we pulling reports into PowerPoint? Are we making assumptions, in good faith, but is it the accurate data? And is there a way to measure what the margin of error is organizationally? I would say probably not. And if we don't know what we've done, we can't know what we're doing. And if we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what we're going to do, right? And so scalability, data collectively, if it's not accessible to the unit of action, the doer, it is worthless, bottom line. If we can't draw inferences in it and integrate it into our planning cycles, conduct mission analysis, as we make our way around the wheel and a holistic, hopefully a little less gross each time, right? A little bit better. It's useless, right? It's buried in share some point somewhere, and we're not tying it into the planning cycle. So can it scale across and enable the unit of action? That's my first thing. And then what is the end user experience? I think all of us in this organization, whether it's government or industry, when we look at the institutional knowledge required to deliver meaningful impact, the answers are in the junior officers, junior NCOs, junior GSs in your organization that have been there and live it day to day. The challenges that we see is, can we effectively communicate that to industry? Historically, right? You would see us, hey, tell me your problems. We're going to write that down. We'll see you in 90 days. Hey, that's not at all what I wanted. So having a low-code capability with a simplistic end-user experience where a dumb infantry guy like me with no coding background can produce a rough scheme of maneuver, the appropriate ontologies, take unstructured data into structured workflow, the same way I would build a ConOps slide for a PowerPoint or any other briefing I would do, is a major force multiplier to transform your organization. And if we can move faster, at the end of the day, we can reallocate that time into the things that matter. In my mind, updating Cubs and Bubs slides from 10 disparate systems, or going through and changing a stoplight chart from red to yellow in the training meeting, or so on and so forth. I'm sure we could all think of a litany of briefings like that are manually updated. It takes time away from attacking your mission. So I think from a scalability and end user experience perspective, I think those are two decisive things to modernize.
Appreciate that, Mike. The experience as well is, while I think it's different, I'll say from a corporate world perspective, where people can say, I'm not going to do that. That's not going to happen in the military, thankfully. And so the experience is, if it's difficult and it's hard and it doesn't really allow you or enable you to hit it at speed, you still have to do it. We want to be able to transform that so it's not having to use those capabilities, that the experience becomes a lot better, right? Again, staying high level, low code, no code. How many people have experience with low code, no code? Okay, So pretty good. So when you're thinking of low code, no code, I like to kind of think through it as almost like Legos. People have asked me oftentimes, what is really low code? What is no code? The way I've typically explained it is no code is, again, like a Lego block. You don't go and say, oh, I'm going to look at how that Lego block was engineered. It is a piece of code. It does a function. It accelerates that function. It is there. It is ready to be used. You really have no code. Is there code there? Yes. It's already done for you, though, right? You didn't have to go and, build the Lego block. It's there. Low code would be able to take those different pieces and put it in a process, in an application, such that you can achieve more and guaranteed results. So you have that low code. I'm not having to go in there, as Mike mentioned, which I don't believe you that you couldn't code it, because anyway, but I couldn't. So being able to take that proven technology, I think most importantly now, as we look at the way that data is transforming, is AI integration. And I realize that not everything's authorized right now for AI. It's kind of a scary footprint at the moment, but being able to have a platform that is ready to integrate with those AI technologies when we're ready for it to go forward is critical. If that platform, which you're going to hear us talk a lot about ServiceNow, because CDW uses ServiceNow for all of our operations internally, and we're a believer in it. So again, there's a lot.
You're totally not biased at all.
I'm not. I like it, but I've been using ServiceNow for 10 something years already, so I'm a big fan. Reusable components and inherently secure. These are critical aspects of being able to not have to worry about those functionalities and features of the proven code. It's secure. You don't have to think through it. And again, I'm going to apply it to the world that I know. If I took 5 developers or 5 coders and I put them in a room, I'm going to get 15 ways of doing that one task. It's just the nature of the beast. I don't suppose there's any examples you could give of anything in the military that happens that way, could you? Without offending anybody?
No, I was just going to say, go find, 2 brigade commanders that will agree about anything, in my experience.
Yeah, so I think it's the same.
There's a million ways to do things.
Right, there's lots of ways to skin a cat, but I think the low code, no code, the platform, common technology, common integration across all of the areas that you need to work in is critical and important.
So hold on really
yeah.
quick. So I'd like to hit on number 3, Mark Jones, if you're watching this. So AI, the value of a workflow-backed intelligent platform that is AI capable. Like tomorrow, if I were to come and call you, sir, and say, hey, I'd love to get a couple petabytes of flat files to train our LLM to deliver a solution to you, you would tell me to go pound sand, right? Yeah. And so, but what's incredible here, right? When we have structured workflows to generate CUI data in our instances, right? And we create a repository of information, we turn our AI on. Now you have 2 avenues of approach from an agentic and generative vector. We can apply this to document generation, just like boring stuff like 4187s, but like we've got a litany. How many joint airfield seizure ConOps do you think the 82nd has buried in SharePoint? Dare I say a cacophony, right? And so things that we have are predictable in nature, speed, being able to initiate movement with AI to get to a 60 to 70% solution is going to be where we see that cost savings and reinvestment back into the execution process. So where we can focus on what matters. We polish it up and we focus on rehearsals. We focus on, making sure that we've got the minimum viable requirements to go forward, but eliminate, killing the creep and like not having the, have to nug out these products over and over again, I think is a major cost saving. It's something we all probably struggle with across government. And so that's just, when you're considering us, the more you use it, the more that's in the repository, you can move quicker.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the key to what Mike was saying is data-centric operations really is, it speeds up your competitive edge. And again, I apply it to the knowledge that I have, and then you can make it real for here. Having stale and static dashboards and reports is just, it's not acceptable anymore. You have to have that data at your fingertips, because if you don't, somebody else does. I see it every day where someone will say, hey, by the way, I want to talk to you about this. This is what the numbers are showing. And I'm like, when did you pull that? Like, when did you pull that? because that's out of date already. It's not, the battlefield has shifted. I think you've shared that with me, right? The battlefield's shifted. And so it's going to speed up your competitive edge. The standardization and the tagging is already there. There's already requirements. There's already specification. There's already geolocation specifications and meta tagging. All of that exists today. So it's just a matter of applying it. The integrations, having APIs. We're not saying that you're going to have a silver bullet that solves all your problems. It's not. There isn't one. And if it was, you're probably fighting vampires. You need wooden stakes. It's a different challenge. And so the integrations have to be readily available and easy to integrate with, because you have those systems that have been in place for years that will not be replaced for whatever reason, because they're successful, or again, they're just not going to be replaced right now because of budgets. So it has to be a platform that you can integrate easy with, seamless integration. I shouldn't say easy though, I should say simple, nothing's easy.
Yeah.
Application enablement. When we talk about low code, no code, that really is the ability to sit down. And as I said, I don't have that military experience, but if I can sit down with you who know your process and your applications and know what you need to achieve, I can take something like that and enable it in an app, but I can also show you how to do it now thanks to low code, no code. And we're not asking for every soldier that's out there on the battlefield to give. That's not what we're asking. There are people who are in command and control who know exactly what needs to be done. They just need a way to do it.
Yeah, well, and if your plan, and again, I'm going to go back to those 3 swim lanes, garrison, training, and forward deployed. If your plan is to embed an FSR to help you pull things in and out of production in a quickly changing theater of operation, irrespective of whatever that theater of operation is, we need to train and create organic capabilities within the organizational base of the Army to be able to be agile, simple, and violent. Those 3 things. And we can apply that to everything we do.
Thanks. That application enablement really, it becomes real. When you're printing out forms, and I'm not talking about DDL environments. If you want to talk about DDL, we have a DDL kit in our booth. Come see us and we'll talk about that. When it's tactical, it's disconnected and you can still take care of your tactical operations. But when you're talking about application enablement and things that you have to print, you have the forms, they stack up, and then somebody has to, instead of focusing on the training and all the things you mentioned, Mike, they have to enter that data in, which takes hours. That's just not really acceptable. So how do we get this application development to be able to do it on forms, or even if it was on paper, to be able to ingest that form? Justin, you and I were talking about this the other day, right, at dinner. You had forms, right, that you printed out, and then you automated the scanning of it. Well, even that saves time, right? So I think it's application enablement with low code, no code to be able to do things faster, because speed is your competitive edge. If it's going to sit on somebody's desk for days, weeks, it's already out of date. It's done. It's not going to help you. The decision support, again, you and I talked about a little bit about decision support. I don't have a lot of experience with the decision support for the military. So.
Yeah. So let's boil it down to its simplest form, right? For decision support. Does anyone touch logistics in the audience? Anyone? Just by show of hands. Whether government or okay, cool, sweet. All right. So why are we replicating in an operational training or garrison environment the usage of an attritable resource in a separate report? If we know we're going to do X in a concept of operation, we know what equipment we're going to use for it. The data already exists on the miles, hours, et cetera, et cetera. Why is that not being plugged into a costing model that we can depreciate the assets for, understand the seasonality of how those attritable resources are consumed, and marry that all the way back to the OIB so that the folks that have to buy it have better predictability and understanding on how the seasonality of that is utilized. But more importantly, right, where can we improve it over time? So we're not turning around, for example, and saying, hey, we need Raytheon, we need $20 million of 155 rounds tomorrow. How can we create predictable consumption within the sustainment warfighting function to empower our contracting folks, our AMC folks, the folks that procure everything we need to fight and win where we go, to have better hegemony across the force. That's an example of what I'm talking about, the decision-making power. Is that something we consider today, or do we just accept a reasonable margin of error based on how we report information? All of that stuff dies in the rain notebooks, from lace reports to log stats, to how we conduct maintenance in the motor pool and we're printing it out. Like, are we really doing PMCS? Are we checking the box? Those are all areas that we should seek to improve and take the soldiers' discipline that already exists and enhance that to have better foresight across that warfighting function. We could adapt that to intelligence. We could adapt that to maneuver. We can adapt that to force protection. Irrespective, right? It's all a war flow, and I would define a war flow different from a workflow as something that enables the transmission of reporting and data by warfighting function. Different than, hey, we're out of pencils in the office. Can we get some more? Or, hey, can we solve this ticket? You know what I mean? But for the same reasons that industry and the IT vertical and the business vertical trust us to put the right information in the right hands at the right time in the right place, is exactly why we should live at the knife edge of battle. And you can backwards plan from the knife edge of battle to the folks that support the knife edge of battle, and then the enablers back here in the States that provision that and deliver on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just say it is not a matter of will or skill, because the will and the skill is out there. It is a matter of connecting a lot of these applications and platforms, and that's what this is about. I did do a conversation with the 501st in South Korea when I first started in this, and they were talking about exactly that, the maintenance and the ordering and the parts and how it was disconnected. They would go into one system for the maintenance records, and then they'd try to order something, and they couldn't order it because it was in another system. And then when you're in South Korea, they had to go through yet another system for approvals and match them up. And then they'd say, oh, well, this system says these are the approved vendors, but none of those vendors exist where we can get it here. So now we have to go do something else. Oh, how do we find out who that person is that we're going to order that equipment through? Oh, I think John worked on that. Yeah. Let's go. Oh, well, John's gone because there's a 6-month turnaround. So tribal knowledge is gone. How do we keep all of that training and knowledge, again, in a data-centric platform? That's gonna be the key. This is your craziness here.
Okay, so I know there's a lot going on this slide, and we're coming at the end of our time, so I want to hit on a couple things here, right? This is how I would like to see, communication across the domains to pass information, just process-wise. Maybe we wouldn't cover this entirely, but for sure components of this we could touch and relatively, I won't say easily, but in a simple fashion. I mentioned this earlier in the discussion. Think about how much information dies in a service member's Write in the Rain notebook that we can never draw inferences from, right? The war fighter on now, imagine for a moment, if I was king for a day and I could wave a magic wand and have it Mike's way, that every end user device for capability set 2027 has a baked in role that is MOS specific, that has the warfighter on now. And for example, there's 11 series folks in the field. They've got their battle damage assessment, tactical site exploitation app, LACE report, insert you name it, right? That is populated by the sensors on the ground. We're already doing this every day when we're consolidating on the objective, right? We're writing in our notebook, we're via voice sending this report. 12 hours later, 3 days later, when we get back to wherever we're going to sleep that night, the leaders are writing their patrol summaries that inform the ground intelligence report. And where does that go? Is it accessible for leaders at the lowest echelon to understand what their adjacent units are doing and tie that into their decision-making process to be more aware? I would say probably not, but I think we could get there, right? Iteratively. From fires to logistics to intelligence to force protection, insert all of these things that are broken down and baked at echelon exist today. We know the reporting structure of how it looks, but if I can't understand how it performs over a year, how do we grow? There's a great article I always reference called "Lying to Ourselves." Does the Does the 20-mile ruck march on Friday actually improve lethality, or are we just breaking people to break people? That was a different army, that I was in, but I'm glad it's great to see that we're learning. It's no longer good enough to be hard and strong. It's no longer good enough to be smart. We have to be smart and strong. And so how we can aggregate unstructured data at the knife edge, tie it all the way back to the highest echelon in combat, in training, in garrison, so we can apprise senior leaders to make changes in real time and right the ship. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I want to talk to you about after this, if you guys have time. And this is the process that I think we can align on predictively to deliver value quicker. I know I just said a lot. Any thought,
Yeah, do we have any questions?
Any thoughts on that?
Any thoughts on that?
Am I at least looking at it from the right vector? Looking at you, sir, in the front row.
So I operate at the operational strategic level.
Yes, sir.
So my challenge with any low code, usually it's a SAS, an IL4,
Mm-hmm.
where the data gateway, an IL5, where all my data resides. There's no gateway. There's no communication. I can't, without giving you a flat file of my data,
Mm-hmm.
put it in IL4, and I don't want to do that because I want to protect everything my
Sure.
data in IL5. So unless that SAS is built, where we're putting IL5,
Mine is fully ATO'd POC3 in today, IL5. We played the, yeah. I'm just talking about me, how I could solve it. I can't speak on it, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, 100%.
And that is a challenge. And you're one of the few, Microsoft's the other one that has IL5 category. Every other company that the CIOs recommend to us, that's our challenge to look at.
Well, and you bring up an excellent point, right? Because even going through the ATO process, when you procure a technology like that, it's organizationally specific, right? Just because POC3N has an approved instance and fully ATO, you guys got to go through the process again. And so speed, time to value, one of the unique benefits of some of the work that we've done in ASMP is with low code, you start day one, IL4, impact level 4, assess only ATO. And so, looking at somebody that doesn't have such a mature footprint across the intelligence space, across the DoD, and when you're backwards planning to some of these transitions and sunsetting of some of these legacy systems that I know, are probably the bane of your existence, honestly, that presents a significant challenge and hurdle. I don't think the answer, as much as I'd love to say it, lies solely with ServiceNow. I think we could walk into your office and say, hey, sir, hey, ma'am, if you got a problem, we could probably solve it for you, but we can't solve them all. But that's a common trend. We were just having this discussion here with at Fort Bragg last week. A similar discussion around that very same topic, sir.
And the other challenge is, right, integration, huge for us right now. Whether we go with ServiceNow, Microsoft,
Mhm.
you name the company, how do we integrate that to another platform? Right? At the end of the day, we want to screen for the individual user, and jam and stuff, but integrate, right? We get oversold on integration, and that becomes our hurdle.
So I totally missed that, and I'm glad you brought that up because, think about like the spaghetti code, because we've got no TACSOP standard that we follow doctrinally for how we're delivering modernization. And so not even like the integrations, even when we do integrate with systems, a colon means something different here than there. And so you'll get a different output or throughput when you're getting your numbers. I used to deal with this with the differences between HSS and IPSE when we're trying to get DASSER recruiters, right? Like, General Davis gets briefed on that every day. And so some poor captain is tracing it all the way down to the recruiting battalions, right? To look at, okay, well, why is this DASSER I can't remember what the other, forgive me, the other, whether you volunteer, whether you're assigned, like whatever, but they have to trace it back to who put the data and brief that every day. And it, more often than not, it's a challenge, right? That's a legacy problem that we're going to have to iterate. We're not going to solve that tomorrow, like no matter who you are and how good you are. But iteratively, I think we could improve that just by being the engagement layer between systems and that single, flat, fast, and transparent pane of glass that sits on top of that. Look, I don't care what you use. I'll build a spoke to it and configure it in a dashboard that is familiar to your command structure in that format, so it's not new, so we can fight that organizational change management hesitancy. Keep the system. Keep what you, we'll keep what you like and we'll modify what you don't. There's a software rationalization piece that we could, obviously I could belabor that on, and I'm not, because we're coming to the end of our time and I want to allow for more questions, but would love to chat after this, sir, and get your thoughts on that, about maybe how we could deliver some value for you, potentially.
Yeah, I think that's the key, because you mentioned there are so many areas, and typically the approach is, well, we've got to integrate with all of them. And instead of picking very specific ones, I get that sometimes it's a domino effect of Reliant data, but to start picking very specific areas that we can improve. I do believe that the low-code, no-code platform, regardless of which one you use, is going to transform that. Because the speed of being able to show value then and saying, hold on a second, let me get it to 80% right now. Maybe we come in and help you get to the 100%. Now show that in weeks instead of what I've seen, which is months. And I'm being generous if I say months. It's years. It's years because of and I understand it, but it's years because of all of those integrations that you mentioned. It's like, well, wait a minute, what about this? So we're gonna throw all this value out that we can have at our fingertips right now because we're not doing this one piece. Again, unless it's mission critical. I'm not gonna.
And when we've got this multi-domain column here on the left, right? And I would settle for one domain before we start talking
choose one.
multi-domain, right? I know that we're going to have to charge forward and continue to lead forward in the saddle on it, but we can move as fast as you guys will let us.
That's a good point. I'll go to this and then we'll open it up for more discussion and questions. But really what we're putting together in partnership with ServiceNow is accelerators. Being able to set up an environment that you can come in, we can actually teach you quickly, 1 or 2 days, how to use low code, no code. If you're familiar with it already, you don't really need the training, you just need the platform and you need access. Being able to come in, take those legacy applications, whiteboard what your process is and what you think we could quickly address and fix. We then turn it over to you. You go and develop it to the 80%, maybe it's only 60%, to the best that you can with your experience, and then say, okay, here's what I'm struggling with. We come in, help you finish it out, and then you can show that to command and say, is this something we can do? It's a matter of weeks.
I just want to add one thing.
Yeah.
One license. I don't care if you build one app or 1,000 apps. It's the same price. We're not going to penalize you for utilizing this tool to the benefit of your organization. So
I think that's a big change.
Yep.
Because again, I've had, over the last couple of weeks, I've literally had emergency situations where people have come to me and said, I have to get off of X platform. Why? What happened? Because I'm about to get hit with a license change. Just, again, ask for the transparency of the platforms and the applications that you're going into to be able to say, how is this going to scale as I do more with your platform? And if I love it, are you going to penalize me for that? Yes or no? I mean, I get that everybody's in business, but that's what's stifling a lot of the creativity. We'd love to do more with it, but we can't afford it. I think what you just said, again, that's a game changer.
Yep.
Development backlog, again, that's another one where I've seen organizations have in their backlog the same challenge year over year over year that they go to RFP with. The requirements haven't changed much. In fact, I've seen people reuse the same information from last year, and it boggles my mind. I'm like, how did you go a year and nothing changed in your world with everything that's going on right now? So being able to address that backlog and, again, produce quick solutions is critical and important. And, again, our partnership allows us to do that. And then I don't have to tell you about the silo data. You already know what it is. You've heard it. You live it. You breathe it every day of your life. And, again, I'm not saying that there's a silver bullet that fixes all these problems. Just, come to us and we're going to solve. No, let's just pick 1 or 2 things that are critical to you and go after it in rapid fashion, speed. That's what we need to do. So appreciate your time today. I don't know if there's any questions or things you'd like us to drill down into more. We've got 10 minutes if we want to dive into some more questions. Yeah, so we've I guess in partnership, you guys have done some workshops. We've done some workshops.
Let me jump into that real quick. All right. So It is the safest environment where we come out, you describe a workflow, you designate 2 or 3 bodies that work and build that workflow under our supervision, and you brief your leadership chain. We like it, we hate it. If you hate it, we don't bother you again. In the last 12 months, we were able, I won't mention the customer, but we were able to consolidate a 5-year app modernization strategy of 37 applications to 2 years, save $1 million in 4 FTEs. From the integrator's mouth, we did 6 months of work in 1 week. The time that you save when you're shoulder to shoulder with government, them not just capturing the process, but being like, actually, this part of the process sucks and we hate it. Can we change that? And you're just dragging and dropping the workflow. Understanding and identifying the canalization points in real time of where you have bottlenecks within the process to optimize that is a tremendous value add to your organization. I'm not speaking about your organization, but I've seen across the Army, that's not even something that's taking place. We're just treading water and trying to make it. And so this is one of the major areas where we give you the ownership of your destiny. We can capture on you leverage your institutional knowledge to carve out a rough scheme of maneuver of what this is going to look like. And then you go to industry and they polish it for you.
So yeah, this is that workshop enablement. You mentioned sandbox, right? Give you something to play around with and get in there, get your hands dirty, and then quickly transform. It's approved. Thank you. Yes, sir.
There might be some folks in here worrying, how does the group know if they're even ready for AI? Is there like an AI readiness? They might be sitting in here thinking, I have no idea if we're even ready for this.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think AI readiness is a critical aspect right now for everyone. Because it's not just about turning on the models and saying, go at it. Anybody can go to ChatGPT and look at the evolution of what's happened there and the information that comes out of it sometimes that it wasn't really ready. It's getting better every day. I think it's amazing what it can produce. But you have to understand those data structures and that data model first. So again, we have workshops that we'll do where we can actually look at those data models and help you determine, are you ready for AI right now? Do you need to turn it on? And again, I know that there's other security constraints on that at the moment, but if we're not figuring that out now so that when it is approved and ready to really go full force, we'll be behind. We're gonna be way behind. So we gotta start having the AI conversations and that type of enablement now in preparation for when it's ready for full force.
I'm just going to add to that really quick. Your peers right now, our adversarial peers are integrating it. We know this, right? Whoever has the best capability is going to win because the next fight is going to be about the initiation of movement. How fast can we achieve an outcome irrespective of what the task is? Like, how can we deliver on an outcome and initiate movement faster? In the olden days, and I'll say the olden days, MDMP, 2 weeks, metal crosswalk, all that stuff. We're still gonna have to do that, right? But how can we initiate movement, get to an 80, 70% solution, and then polish that with AI? If that's not tied into how we're gonna conduct, operations and battlefield management, I think I mentioned this earlier, taking that data and not having the understanding to employ it is the observation of defeat in real time. It's not an if, it is what it is. And unfortunately, in my experience, nobody cares until people start crying and dying. So let's learn from the last time we figured this out and get after it.
Appreciate that. Anyone else?
Can you speak to how this is a long-term solution? After some of the transformation process, we have extensible code systems. Where does the role of this come in longer term, other than like a stopgap to say we need to make all our silent systems talk now? If we have a good system going forward, is this something that we need 5 years from now? We can solve all our problems?
100% because of predictive intelligence. What we're missing out on right now is somebody has to go do that predictive intelligence. And so, again, I know you can give specific examples of this, but being able to say, by the way, supply chain wise, we're about to go into combat potentially in 90 days, and we know that supply chain is always degraded during that time. We better get that now and have it ready is huge.
Look-
But we do it all the time.
Can I jump in and address this? So let's just look back here in the last 6 months where we saw one of the most sophisticated, changes in combat with the Israeli military, where we essentially turned Hamas safe houses into a heat map with beepers. Warfare's changed. Can you imagine the devastating effect in Ukraine if a similar, attack to the supply chain, so where one day everyone wearing an FPV goggle set with all the COTS drones that we're using, just 200 people's heads exploded? Could you imagine the impact to the battle space? Because we wouldn't be able to leverage that. We'd have degraded confidence in the equipment. We're going to have, owning quickly the process from inception, delivery, production, to the trench line of where we fight our next adversary has to be owned, and it has to be owned quickly. And so can we bang it out in code? Can we do it in, UTS 16 or whatever? Sure. But just because we can doesn't mean we should, right? Reallocating that time, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, reallocating that time to move quicker and put that technology in warfighters' hands is going to be the, whether we win or lose the next conflict. And we can apply that through the 3 swim lanes that I brought up today. We could continue, and in some instances, you're right, we may need to do, traditional code, but I would say at least a third to half, we don't. Like when we go out into the Pacific Theater, Third Island Chain gets penetrated, right? And the 3rd Marine Division is conducting littoral operations and occupying islands, and we need a specific solution relevant to that because we've never fought that way. We haven't fought that way since Midway, right? That's going to matter. And how quickly we adapt is going to impact our, what we can do within the region. We can apply that in a myriad of other ways. It's just, an example.
And to your point, I don't think it's a one and done thing. I don't think you get done with that and this is how we operate now. It's accelerating faster and faster every day, the capabilities that are in other people's fingertips and ours as well. We have to take advantage of it. If we don't, again, we lose.
I think we're coming
Does that help answer your question, by the way?
I guess a follow-up question. You said there's these building blocks laid out that are some of that already. What kind of repository options do people have? Is that something that is shared across different organizations? Is that local? How do we know what pieces to pull together and how best to organize that?
align it to your organizational sync matrix with roles-based access. Like we don't want, 2-star generals knowing what team leaders are doing. Like that's not, they would, I'm sure, like roles-based access so the right people have, are informed about the right elements of it. And so we don't get mission creep and we don't stagnate by paralysis by analysis because we're inundated with data, and so configuring on the organizational sync matrix and capturing the deliverables for each one of those, OPTs, cub, bub, insert meeting, right? And codifying that in workflow so that it's referenceable over time and creating event-based triggers in planning processes that create forcing functions to analyze what we did last week again before we do it again to change the culture.
So the building blocks in the workflow is there. You're asking what is already reusable. Those building blocks exist to do those workflows that are back the security and the data structures to pull in. It's already there. We just have to then personalize it to each CO and go from there. And by the way, share something that's not happening a lot, which again, I get brought into these conversations. Sharing the flows that are working.
That's what I was about to say.
Sharing the flows that are working today and saying, hey, they're doing a bang up job over here. What are they doing?
Yep.
And how can we reuse it? If it's that low code, no code, you can reuse it and then personalize it. I get customization is a dirty word. It's not if you understand the risk, and it's necessary. So low code, no code isn't the solution for everything. Again, there's going to be custom code. There's going to be custom apps, but this is an accelerator.
Great question.
Okay. I think we're at time. And again, I appreciate it. Thanks for the engagement. Stop by and talk to us. CDW, ServiceNow. We're right across from each other, downstairs. So we appreciate your time today.
Thank you, everyone.